Sony Pictures Animation is the worst company that makes frequent theatrical animated releases, so this does not mean that they're the worst animation studio of all time, but basically the ones that make frequent theatrical animated releases. Now, I need to get this out of the way. First of all, I am not a child. I am not reviewing movies as children's movies, and this is not a review channel specifically aimed at children, so you can't complain, oh, it's a kid's movie, you can't complain about it, it's for kids. But anyway, today we're going to prove that Sony Pictures Animation, in my opinion, is the worst animation company that makes frequent theatrical animated releases. First, I'm going to talk about the Hotel Transylvania trilogy. Now, I like the concept of a bunch of different monsters all living in one location, in this case a hotel, in a world that humans still legitimately exist in. Now, but I don't think that would work the best for a movie. It would probably be workable in something that was like a TV show, a TV special, or like a 6-minute short film, but I mean, like, yeah, so this was actually made by a legitimately confident director, that the person behind the Star Wars Clone Wars show, not The Clone Wars, Star Wars Clone Wars, and then Samurai Jack and Dexter's Laboratory. Those are some of my favorite animated shows out there. But this film series is not a series of films. It's a series of minute-long cutaway gags with minor continuity. Plus, it can't be complete without one of the worst characters in the history of cinema, Johnny, this character. Now, he is so indespicably annoying, I can't even describe it. The best description I could give it is like if Johnny Test and Logan Paul had a child that had some problems, that's probably correct. Basically, the plot of the first movie is that Johnny is just screwing around, and then he finds a hotel that legitimate monsters live in, but Dracula notices that he is a human, and Johnny somehow, not understanding that he is coming to a place where no other human has ever discovered that is legitimately, well, yeah, all the stuff that could easily murder him. Like, if I was him, I would just leave this place. I mean, like, there's so many dangerous creatures and everything that could easily tear apart mankind and everything. But, I mean, but basically, so that's kind of the combined plot, but overall, so it mainly consists of Johnny acting stupid and not legitimately understanding the world around him, and Dracula trying to cover it up in the most uncreative way ever, but also there's a kind of a subplot about him and his daughter are in love with each other, so I don't think that's really a subplot, because it doesn't take up that much of the film, I guess. It's more of, I guess you could say, a plot device that could provide some legitimate motivation to do something and explore the hotel when he's not supposed to, so you can get a series of minute-long cutaway gags and that all kind of form a cohesive story, kinda, maybe. But, like, see, the killer part is this isn't even funny. I could kind of excuse it if this was funny, but well, it's not funny at all. Well, that's not that true. Well, I mean, like, I could say about 40% of the time the jokes are funny. I mean, like, it's so incredibly forced, and they just try to do some visual things with the animation that I'll get to later. This could literally just be called Shit Happening in the Movie, and there would be pretty much no difference. Now let's talk about its even worse sequel. Now, if we look at its even worse sequel, the plot is that Johnny and Mavis have a child, and since Johnny is a human and Mavis is a vampire, Dracula wants the child to be a vampire, so he takes the child to do things that turn him into a vampire. But, I mean, like, it's not really that explained, and, I mean, like, yeah, it's not entirely related to most things that's going on, but, I mean, like, what's noticeable is that there's so much filler in this movie. Like, yeah, I mean, like, there's that, but there's also just dumb plots about Johnny and Mavis just doing random things in California, I guess. Oh, and also, the ending of this movie is absolutely horrendous. So we have this really extensive fight scene that just uses a little bit of everyone's individual element that, you know, makes them unique characters with no motivation or development or anything. It's just one of the most poorly executed fight scenes I've ever seen. Like, who the heck thought it was a good idea to have, like, a huge action scene in a lighthearted children's movie? Now, if you look at the pointless third movie, it's basically the crew is like, well, there's absolutely nothing left that could possibly happen to make any cohesive storylines or anything overall interesting within its concept. So let's just we'll put them on a cruise ship, and then that's the film. And in tradition of this terrible franchise, we'll just have shit happening, and that's just overall makes it kind of a rehash of the first film and some legitimate elements of the second, because the second film just has all the problems of the first. Due to the fact that this is the third installment in a film franchise, so much has happened within the first two movies, so they have all these side characters and all these running jokes and subplots within the third film, and it all just kind of goes to this, to this, to this, except the one of the thises just kind of pops up later in the film, not when you're expecting it, making it so incredibly inconsistent that it seems unbearable and boring. Also, there is no story. A very important aspect in any film, of course, is the storyline. Well, there is no story in this one, really, because, like I said, just random things happening for what could barely even be considered a feature-length time. But it's just so uninteresting in so many aspects that literally nothing could happen for the third installment, making it easily the worst. And that's just the storyline aspects of the film problems. Like, even the people that like these movies can agree that the writing sucks, but it's mainly about the humor, which sucks most of the time. I mean, like, it's okay. It's not entirely true. The first film has some decently funny moments. The second film, the humor is a lot more forced, but still has decently funny moments, but and just as many of them as the third film do, but it's so, with the inconsistent transitions between everything, one plot to another, it just doesn't work with the two instances, and, well, yeah, there's like a snicker or two throughout the entirety of the film, the comedy film, that, well, that's good, but it doesn't even help the fact that the animation sucks. It's trying to be very cartoony and everything, but it just is so cartoony that it looks really cheap and generic and doesn't make it stand out from any other animated film coming out that same year. And this just applies to all three. I mean, like, it's mainly just the character models and everything. I mean, like, most of the backgrounds look pretty solid. My only real complaint with a lot of the other things, I guess some of the textures look a little off, and it's kind of noticeable because it peeks through just to its cartooniness, because, I mean, like, it's not like everything is set in such a cartoony structure. I mean, like, Inside Out looked fine, probably because they knew what they were doing when they wanted to make cartoony animation, but it's just too cartoony, and it just not make it for a pleasant look at film. Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs is one of the least creative, awful, generic animated films that I've seen ever in my life. It captures almost every aspect is horrendous or cringeworthy, and I so decisively hated this film since I was a child. In fact, there's so many movies that I hated since I was a child, but being since I was always kind of a very critical person, even when I was a child, it's like, oh no, you didn't like a movie or TV show as a child? I'm pretty sure we all have those. Here's just some of the things that I hated as a child that I don't like now. And I mean, like, the only two things I can name that I didn't like as a child that I like now, I guess, would be Bill and Ted and Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. So today we're going to look at Cloudy with the Chance of You'll Have a Brain Tumor by the time you're done watching this. Now, I have to say that this film very heavily relies on tropes because it follows the casual underdog story about, oh, he doesn't succeed, then he succeeds, but then the success causes a disaster, now he's gotta go fix it, oh no. But it doesn't try to work around it in any clever ways at all. The only form of these being seen is the requirements to make a legitimate movie. So yeah, you have the character arcs and structure and everything. Yeah, we have that, but like I said, it doesn't coincide with the cliche or the specific side elements of the storyline that could potentially make it interesting. So this mostly results in just so many seeds being missing throughout the entirety of the film. A film that I could say that has tropes that it fills it with creativity so it's not boring or uninteresting is Coco. It's not a great movie in my opinion, but still one that has tropes and still makes the generic cliches interesting. Because, yeah, okay, yeah, oh, I want to play music, oh no, the parents don't approve of that. Yeah, this cliche, but they make it interesting with tons of extra creative elements. And yeah, sure, I guess the location counts, but we'll get to that later. So the specific things that I tried does to cover up this underdog story is that, well, we just have a bunch of side characters, except they forget to just make them important to the overall storyline, besides promoting so much minimal motivation, I guess. They kind of solves minor conflicts that could be done in other ways, but it's not like they do anything. Sam Sparks is just there to be a love interest, the cop dude is there to be annoying, the fat dude's there to be fat, the monkey's there to be stupid, the short camera dude's there to be a short camera dude, and Flint Lockwood is one of the most annoying characters I've ever seen in any piece of media. He's kind of like Johnny, but worse and more eccentric and energetic in some aspects, but it's somehow even worse. But basically, so they don't know how to capture motivation. Keep in mind, I think this is coming from a confident directors group that certainly learned their mistakes, because they did eventually make quality products like the Lego Movie and 21 Jump Street. But Flint Lockwood is not an interesting character. He's just outright annoying in every aspect that gets to the point where it's absolutely unbearable to watch the character. And I mean, like, there are only 3 characters that need to exist in the whole movie for this just to make sense. Like I said, they're missing seeds, and they need to plant them in with all the extra characters and side plots that don't work and are just terrible. But the only 3 characters that need to exist in this film are Flint Lockwood, I mean, fuck you, and his dad, and then the mayor. The dad to make some of the motivation stronger, and then the mayor to legitimately push him to the initial disaster that happens towards the end of the film. Okay, well, yes, it does lack some color here and there, but most of the background looks fine, but the elephant in the room is the character design and the character animation, which is absolutely horrendous in both aspects. You know, I'm not gonna go through every character design in the film because, well, yeah, they're all bad, but here's just the Flint Lockwood design. Okay, so first of all, his nose goes all the way down to the top of his face, to the top of his forehead. His hair intentionally looks disjointed. He's so skinny that his fingers look like disjointed pieces of meat, and he looks like a stick, wondering how the hell is this guy alive in any aspect. And it looks barely acceptable for a big budget theatrically released animated film. Like, I would expect something like this from, I don't know, a direct-to-DVD only company that makes crappy bootlegs of everything and has no originality to it. But this is a theatrically released film. How is this tolerable? I mean, like, I at least can say that the color palette is decent in some situations, but it does lack some color here and there. Now, okay, if we talk about Cloudy with a Chance of, oh wait, you already have a brain tumor because you watched the first one, we'll make it worse this time with the second one. Oh boy, okay, so before we talk about it, I'm going to talk about possibly the worst character design in any piece of media ever.
Bruh. Look at this dude.
What the hell is this? This is an actual character design released in a theatrically released animated movie. Holy fuck. At least I could say that every other character looks like something that you can conceivably call a human. But this dude is like 10 feet tall, with his arm being lanky as fuck, one of his hands being the size of his head, and just a midget-ass body combined with... I can't even describe what this looks like. It's just like complete with an oval head and his ears being barely even part of his face. Also a nose that's half length of his face as well, and eyebrows going off his forehead, and why not give him glasses that are twice the size of his eyes? So the story basically just relies on, oh, we gotta go to this place, but it's not really relied in any creative form of structure. And also, there's an environmental message in the movie, and it's not like it's important to the film in any aspect. It's just one of those forced, crammed environmental messages like, oh, save the food animals, they have souls too! But it's just absolutely unbearable the entirety of the film. So, plus, god damn it, this is barely even important to the story. And plus, does this life that Flint's machine created, like, does it live like ordinary life? Is there like a cycle of life going on here? Do they eat each other? Look, that one's eaten, so that clearly this movie, I mean, shit. Okay, so I know I just got angry and everything, but seriously, this film is somehow also still liked by people. Now, there are 2 types Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs fans. There are people like, yeah, okay, that's a good movie. And then there are people like, oh yeah, you know, it has problems, but it's still enjoyable enough, like, you know, actual intelligent people. But then, see, then with the second one, there's like, yeah, okay, whatever, that was good. And then, oh yeah, okay, this is garbage, because at least every fan that is kind of acknowledged that the first one is pretty bad, but the people that like it, yeah, they notice it has its flaws, but they still like it enough to consider it a good movie. But then with the second one, they just don't like it because it just is a terrible movie. I don't think anyone involved like this, because it's just is a piece of shit. That's just the best way to put it. Oh yeah, and also there's a fight scene at the end that's horrendous as well, kind of like Hotel Transylvania too. But okay, we'll just move on to the next big product that proves that Sony doesn't care about quality in their products. One of the biggest problems with Sony Pictures Animation is that everything they have to release has to be a franchise by default, and there's no specific room for standalone movies or anything. Yes, I know they currently have standalone movies on their catalog, but those are getting sequels, or they will eventually get sequels if they're not announced as of the time I'm recording this. But, well, yeah, so they decided that they want to keep some of their popular franchises going through the form of TV shows, so today I'll be looking at the Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs show and the Hotel Transylvania show. Let's look at the Hotel Transylvania show first. The Hotel Transylvania series does not understand any of the basics on making a legitimate animated show that even some of the worst cartoons of all time could specifically understand. It has absolutely no establishment and just expects you to know everything right away. There are no still moments to let you learn things about any of the characters. I'm not saying that they need to have character arcs, after all these only are 12-minute episodes and everything, but I think there should be slight moments that are slow paced and everything to legitimately know the characters, because nothing is really established. Like, are these children of the characters? I think this is a prequel because this is set where Mavis is still a child, because I guess the main antagonist of the series, because, well, the Hotel Transylvania movies don't really have an antagonist, if you didn't notice that. So they kind of had to make an antagonist for the show. I guess you're some strict person just watching over the hotel. Oh boy, what a threat. But just watching the first minute of the show is just absolutely astoundingly awful. Like, how could this confuse me so much? Like, at least horrible cartoons and even the Cloudy with the Chance of Meatballs show can properly introduce me to everything without knowing every required material. Dr. X Henry complaining about children's program.
I think that's supposed to tell us that, like, there's someone else in charge. Instead of just doing, like, an actual pilot episode or, like, a prologue, they just do this at the beginning of the episode. Like,
it's astoundingly confusing as hell and just absolutely makes no sense in so many aspects. But if we look at the Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs show, or the Cloudy with a Chance of you have a tumor because you watched the first two franchise installments, now we have a TV show that we put absolutely no effort into whatsoever, no creative mind, or any proof that anyone cared in production of making this. You know, I think that's a long title, but that sounds pretty much accurate, and I guess we could throw the series in there because it's basically the same show, well, in terms of the overall quality of everything, because it's probably even worse than the two movies. It's almost as bad as Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs 2, I could even say. But the biggest aspect that makes the show terrible is that there's just a sheer amount of noticeable laziness that doesn't challenge children in any way whatsoever. But basically, so it follows Flint Lockwood, and this is a prequel, so why the heck is Sam Sparks the character? Clearly they did not know each other, or she did not live in the area that is very firmly established in the first film. How did you screw this up? Would it kill it to just make it be, I don't know, a sequel so things would make sense? Oh no, that's just an excuse to provide laziness, because there's so many questions that need to be answered that either could be laziness or, oh, lol, funny. Like, why is the cop a teacher? Well, easily, it could have been a teacher coincidentally dressed as a police officer while he was a teacher, despite the fact those are two very different jobs. But I'm not saying it's impossible from somebody to go to a police officer to a teacher, or a teacher to a police officer. That's up to them and everything, but, you know, like, why would it be that? And why would he be dressed as a cop? Well, it's either that, what I just said, or it's either that they're lazy and they didn't want to actually make a teacher character for the series. They're like, hey, we'll just use the cop character because it can be lol funny. Get it? He's a police officer and a teacher. Like, same thing with the mayor character. Why is the mayor character a principal all of a sudden? Well, it's either the fact that this is a prequel, he was a principal before he was a mayor, despite the fact those are two completely different jobs that would be kind of hard to just, you know, get out of there and just confirm. But I'm not saying that someone can't do that, but you know, once you settle on being like a principal, I think it would be kind of drastic just to go to a mayor. But it could either be what I just said, or B, they were too lazy to make a principal character, and they're like, hey, you know what'd be funny if we just made the mayor character and made him the principal, because it's funny, because this is a prequel. The only reason it's a prequel is so that we have an excuse to be lazy. Like, I am befuddled to see that how badly this was screwed up, because, well, yes, my problem with the Hotel Transylvania movies is that they aren't funny and they're overly extensive, but making a TV show would not have to be specifically relied on being overly extensive, because it's only 12-minute episodes, so they could do smaller and shorter concepts and not make everything so stretched out. Thus, they could use this to make it an opportunity to learn from their mistakes. First of all, the movies don't have antagonists. Okay, I guess the third one had Erica, but since there's so many plots going around, there really isn't that much of an antagonist, and we all know that she's gonna save everybody in the end anyway, so who really gives a shit? But, I mean, like, we sort of got an antagonist here, so I guess that's an improvement. But, I mean, like, you know what the show pretty much reminds me of? Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, but that's a 10 times more creative show that's sort of in a hotel-like setting that's filled with so much creativity in tons of aspects, making it a very likable and enjoyable show that has sort of a similar location. But this just, there's no creative input, and just everything sucks. Like, half of the stuff doesn't even make sense. No one cared about this. Also, the animation is shit, as you can see now. When you make a character design in CG, you have to make it presentable in other formats. I mean, like, most character designs are usually drawn as 2D drawings, but, you know, that would be kind of hard to legitimately make it due to the character designs, because they're so heavily relied on 3D, so we get these fucking horrible character designs. Like, you know how I said I got a brain tumor from watching these cringy films? Well, you know, I think, like, Flint Lockwood's nose looks like a tumor almost. Like, look at this. It just looks absolutely horrendous in some shots because it has to be seen from specific angles. The reason why the film is 3D, well, not only to use the technology at the time, well, yes, they specifically built it around it way too heavily focused, because you need to have character designs look presentable in multiple formats. I'm not saying they have to look presentable in every format, ever, but they have to look presentable in most, but here it definitely proves it. I mean, like, at least the Hotel Transylvania show, I mean, like, the animation's not horrible, it just does absolutely nothing creative with it, and some of the character designs could use a bit of work. They're not the best iteration of 3D characters, because I do think all the 2D characters do look better than 3D, but I think it always should have been in 2D for the overall cartoony look to, you know, make it more stylized for it to legitimately work. Like, this show was so bad that Cartoon Network wanted it off their network as soon as possible. So they just aired, like, a new episode every day according to this advertisement. Like, clearly they don't even want this on the network.
Cartoon Network presents Flint Lockwood before he made it rain meatballs.
I'm an inventor!
Chainsaw wash and Viro rocket.
Lawnmower shoes!
Flint Lockwood, we don't have time for your nincompoopery.
Busted!
Cartoon Network has time for all of Flint's ideas. Every day in March in a brand new show.
Who knew?
Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. Every day in March. And check out a sneak peek on the Cartoon Network app.
Guess I can make time for that.
And these are from the people that think Teen Titans Go is good. Now, I'm not saying that they think it's good, they just get the views, but, like, why, despite all the negative reception, why do they push it? Why do they make a movie out of this? Why has this been going on for so long? Like, I know I'm getting off topic, but, like, seriously, even the people that think it's a good idea to keep having Teen Titans go on the air think it's a bad idea to put on the network so they can get rid of it and erase it from any existence in the network's history as quickly as they possibly can. Just proves overall how bad of a TV show this is. It doesn't challenge children, it doesn't do anything creative, it's mostly just shit happening, kind of like Hotel Transylvania, but they don't use it for any creative extent. Flint Lockwood is an inventor character. This is sorta about inventions going wrong, but it doesn't use it in any creative way. It's mostly just to solve a conflict that doesn't mean anything, or, you know, they just think of something that doesn't even have to do with science. Also, it does not help at all that both the intros to the TV shows are horrendous. If I was going to do like a top 10, 15, 20 worst theme songs list, I'd probably put this around somewhere no higher than 11, but no lower than 8. as a tie, because these are both pretty bad. The Hotel Transylvania one is the worst one, but the Cloudy with the Chance of Meatballs one's like, yup, get Flint screwed up, whoa, look at all this stuff happening, kooky, yeah. And then the Hotel Transylvania like, oh, super dark and scary and gothic, it's very dangerous for children. Oh, no, just kidding, very lighthearted, dancing fun. It's just all dark and stuff. Oh, nope, lighthearted stuff. Oh, super scary. No, this crap happening. And there we have it. My thoughts on the TV shows. Now, anyway, let's have a look at the worst product Sony's probably ever made. Hey everybody, this may not seem like a surprise, but the Emoji Movie is the worst thing in the history of ever, and I know I say that with everything, but this is probably almost as bad as Emo Dad and any other comparison of things I've reviewed so far on this entirety of this Dr. X Henry Show series, but this is a film that nobody asked for, nobody wanted to make, and anyone with any form of human intelligence would look at this and say, this is stupid, because it just is. How does this appeal to anyone? I think even kids would dislike this, but, I mean, so, let's look at the Emoji Movie. Yay, I seem very thrilled. You know, if you go around telling people that you watch this is certainly something to brag about, right? Oh no, wait, it isn't. Okay, so the film starts up introducing the world of emoji, and they're basically saying that they're the best form of communication ever. Language through visuals is bad, but like, really, it's the best form of human communication ever. Introduced to Gene, played by T.J. Miller, who I think, in my opinion, is a terrible actor. He's the worst part of Deadpool 1 and 2. He plays Gene, and he's almost lazy in every other performance I've ever seen. But I mean, like, it's the Emoji Movie. Did you really expect that many people to be specifically invested in this project? But it literally just sounds like his talking voice. Like it's a huge noticeable problem, because this is kind of a huge problem with a lot of the voice acting. It's literally just the actor's talking voice. I'm not saying that's bad. Sometimes that works for a character really well. I mean, Ryan Griffin sounds fine, and that's just Seth MacFarlane's talking voice. But anyway, we get introduced to all these characters that do absolutely nothing and look horrendous. So basically, each emoji only has one expression, because, well, I guess they're emojis and they're only specifically meant to represent one singular emotion, not resulting in much personality with each other. That's kind of the point of the film, which, you know, drags it to be very mean-spirited towards everyone. But anyway, so we learn that all these characters are literally just their expressions making. Why is Gene the only one with, like, an actual name? Do the other emojis have actual names? That's just what they're referred to because that's what they express? Or was it lazy and they're like, no, we can't just call him Matt all the time because he has multiple emotions. We gotta give him an actual name and not give anyone else an actual name, because, like I said, like, who actually cared about the process of making? But anyway, he goes to the text message sending thingy, and apparently the emojis know that what message is going to be sent. Well, I guess these computer dudes or whatever, but like so how do they just know that he's going for Matt? Like, he could be going for every other emoji out there. He's just scrolling to look for another emoji. How did they know that he is specifically going to choose that one? It couldn't be anyone in a roll of emojis that he since hasn't scrolled through. You know, I have to say, now, there are a lot of things, I mean everything, that doesn't make sense in this movie. But I tried to find the funniest example of something that doesn't make sense. So, here's something. Well, the emojis are in the bathroom. So, well, obviously they don't have genitals, and they can't reproduce because, oh, Gene has parents, and they have a subplot that's absolutely pointless as well. But, yeah. So, anyway, like, so, what's wrong with the scene here?
Yeah, I'm gonna work on the phone, and I'm only 10.
That's because I believe in you.
Should we wash our hands?
No. We're number 2.
Okay, so the problem with the scene is that either A, the poop emoji as a child, and, you know, he's just making sure that he's, you know, safe when he's using the bathroom in the stall because he's a young child, perfectly normal thing. Okay, that's fine. Or is that a literal piece of shit that's a complete waste of Patrick Stewart's talent, and they're in the toilet, but the piece of shit was on the toilet with his son. So did he give birth to his son? Are toilets like torture chambers to shit emojis? Because, like, he would just create another one? I guess, if anything, smeared off? Did he literally just give birth to a child in a toilet? And I mean, like, I guess the film says that he's 10, so he's probably on the toilet for a long time. Or this just doesn't make sense. So now Gene has to go to the Lizard Lounge where all the emojis that don't get used hang out. But, okay, so then we get introduced to High Five, played by James Corden, who is the most useless character in the entire movie. He does absolutely nothing that's somewhat important to the plot, and who is also literally just his talking voice, exactly like Jameson. He's only there to act stupid and fat. You could argue that he's an important element in the progressiveness of the story because he takes Gene to the piracy app. Wait, I'm pretty sure that's not a thing that the piracy app? Like, I get piracy is the thing that you could do on the internet, but then they go into the piracy app, and then, well, there's internet trolls there, despite the fact that internet trolls aren't literal trolls on the internet. They are people that intentionally cause conflicts with one another online for haha funny purposes. Except in this movie, they're like actual trolls. Go to like a web page on the internet. Why is there a piracy app? So basically, that's could go on the list of things that Sony can't understand. And then, well, yeah, they meet a jailbreak on this bar type scene in the piracy app. Like they want to do that because, like, hey, those are in cool movies. Like, bars are usually cool settings to, you know, establish some world building and whatever. So they just put it in there. Okay, so whatever. So then they meet Jailbreak, who is a hacker, and that jailbreak. What does that express? Oh wait, that's important for later in the film. Oh, by the way, if you don't want spoilers, she probably gets some mental health. Because she's a hacker, she can take them the Dropbox to get Gene's multi-emotion problem erased. Yeah, you go to Dropbox. Dropbox is basically just like the Google Drive. Like, how do you hack something in Dropbox? Can you at least go to, like, I don't know, some internet page or something that could hack him? Like something illegal? I don't know, maybe. Why would you go to Dropbox? So basically, this one destination that all the characters are trying to get to is literally just, like, product placement. Like this is literally just an advertisement. This is like a 90-minute advertisement. Like, I'm not even kidding. Like, I could say about 90% of the scenes with Gene, Jailbreak, and High Five are product placements or have some relation to product placement in them. Now, I'm not saying that product placement is bad in movies. In fact, if it's a live-action movie, it could make the human environment seem more official and everything. And I mean, like, it's basically just free advertising, or unless they have to pay to use your product or whatever. But I mean, that's usually fine in movies. When plot structure relies on product placement, that's just not acceptable. I mean, like, it's not like this film does anything original anyway. People claims that it rips off Inside Out, Wreck-It Ralph, and many other films, but I do agree with sorta of that. But on the Inside Out portions, I see why people would be claiming it to be ripping off Inside Out. Now, it focuses both on a fictional world that plays an important role in the context with the specific beginning of the world that is fictional, but I mean, like, that is a very overused trope. I mean, like, that's been around since pretty much the beginning of animation almost. And like, and keep in mind, this is something that's hard to pull off when there are a lot of stories about whatever coming to life when you're not around. You have to make it unique. There are so many stories about that before Toy Story, but the reason why Toy Story is such a great movie because Pixar puts such a clever spin on it. That's what makes it interesting. Now, when people say that it rips off Wreck-It Ralph, now I could understand that. Does it do it entirely? Yeah, kinda, but it's not as specifically done in a similar format. Now, essentially, in the Emoji Movie, it's a phone with a bunch of apps, and Wreck-It Ralph, it's an arcade with a bunch of different arcade games that are based off of pre-existing arcade games, or are basically just arcade games that aren't called what they called because, you know, Disney doesn't want to use that because it would look bad in their image or whatever. Now, basically, yes, so I understand that, but it doesn't do anything within the specific plot structure because Wreck-It Ralph is actually a creative, well-written film, and this isn't. Oh, and then it's also just kind of a ripoff of the Smurfs The Lost Village movie, which is mainly about Smurfette not fitting in because each Smurf only does one thing, so she gotta go on a quest to discover what she specifically is. That's a really bad movie. If I do a sequel to this will definitely be on there along with the other two Smurf movies, but that's also kind of ripoff of that. It's not noticeable, it's just sort of in context. Not a whole lot of people pointed it out, and it doesn't help that every conflict is solved by some horrible solution that mainly involves product placement or just something stupid. Like, later in the film, it turns out that Jailbreak is the princess emoji. So, you know, in far superior movies with princess protagonists, you know, just singing or whatever, birds just kind of like show up or whatever. So then Twitter shows up, like she calls for a bird, but then Twitter shows up, like so can an app just get up and move? That's just a thing on the app. Is the logo alive? Like this doesn't make sense. This was probably written in like an afternoon. And for the people that watch this movie going in without seeing any of the complaints about anything, because it was kind of impossible to avoid any acknowledgement that people didn't like this movie when this movie came out. In fact, it's still probably hard to acknowledge nothing about the hatred of this movie, because it's one of the most universally hated movies in recent years. But basically, so the ending is just absolutely filled with tropes. Okay, if you watch a lot of animated films, there are a lot of tropes in animated films, and the third act of this movie has a lot of tropes, and I mean a lot. So basically, in the Textopolis, I guess there's like the dictator Smiler, who I guess is like the normal smiley face emoticon. So she's the leader because she's the first emoji, but you see, the yellow smiley face and emoji are two different things. The yellow smiley face has been around way before emojis were even a thing, but I guess, yeah, that design was around before emojis, so that means she's automatically a dictator. Like, there can't be the first emoji. They clearly all came in a set together. We get to, well, the worst trope in animation, in my opinion, the fake-out death. Now, I really don't like this. Why do so many Disney movies use this? You know, I want to say a Disney movie where, like, the character dies, not the parents, like the character dies. But so basically, that I know I didn't follow everything in the entirety of this movie, but there's a subplot about Alex who has absolutely no personality. He's the person that owns the phone which all the emojis live in, and because Gene screwed up, he's going to factory reset the phone over in emoji or an error that he can't specifically determine. So yeah, that's really his solution. Something didn't go through right. Factory reset it, boom. But then he takes his crappy Sony phone to what is basically just an Apple store to factory reset it. But so once it's in the factory reset mode, the emojis, they're all still live, and he can still access everything. So basically, Thanos snaps his fingers, and then, oh no, everything's going away, and then, oh, so climactic. We're gonna see all these lovable characters die. Whoa. But basically, so nope, they don't die. Gene has the time to send one other emoji that is a super emoji and impress the girl, and he's like, oh, I'm not gonna factory reset my phone anymore, despite the fact once a factory reset is started, you can't stop a factory reset on a phone. Like, I don't work for Apple or anything, but even I know this. I'm sure even adults just looking at this would know this. You can't just stop a factory reset. Who thought this was a good idea? Also, then we get an instance of another frequently found cliche, a dance party ending, so they can sell a song on a soundtrack. Well, basically, yeah, this pretty much occurred since the first Shrek movie, but why is this a good way to end the movie? Like we literally just end with the sad with quotes, almost everybody die and everything. Big dance party, and then some people say the animation on this movie is good. I'll give them credit that all the character designs on the humans don't look horrible. They're not exaggerated cartoony messes like every other Sony Pictures animation movie out there. But I mean, like, the emojis look horrible. Basically, they just got an emoji, they put it in 3D, and then slap some arms and legs, like, call it a day. And just the part I really hate is the textures on the emojis are just outright disgusting and unpleasant to look at. I mean, like, so I don't think the animation is very good. I'll give it credit that the movements don't look like all the characters had 50 Red Bulls for breakfast, but it's still not acceptable animation. I know this had a very low budget, but Sony clearly has the money to put, actual budget into a film, because I'll give them credit they at least had a budget over $100 million on, like, Illumination, but I think Illumination actually kind of tries, but they just don't know what they're doing. The Sony just doesn't try at all. You see, when you make movies for children, or you just make movies for audiences, you have to challenge them. Film has shaped us all so much as children and adults. We need storylines for children that legitimately challenge them. I don't know where I would be without movies, and movies like this just prove that animation is just a genre only for children, and less of a medium of a form of entertainment. So, I'm Dr. X Henry. If you're making animated films, do not take influence off this, and I'm signing off, and if you watch this whole thing.